Hey guys, Kayosho here, and it is story time. So, growing up, my family didn't have a lot of money. I wouldn't say we were poor, we didn't have much money to spend. My sister and I didn't get an allowance or anything similar that other kids would brag about, so the times of year that we could really count on getting something cool, a new toy, or a game was Christmas and birthdays, though mostly Christmas. I imagine that was probably true for more kids than not, really. Every year, my sister and I could choose one big gift we each really wanted. And by big, I mean expensive. And by expensive, I don't mean the quote-unquote expensive that went for most of my friends. I mean something around $50 or on rare occasions as much as $100. We got other gifts, along with a big gift, but it was the one that mattered most. I was 10 years old in 1995. In the months leading up to the Christmas of 95, I was agonizing over the choice between two different things I wanted pretty badly. A Game Boy and a Data Blaster. The Game Boy came out in 1989, so it had been out for 6 years and the price had come down. The Tiger Data Blaster, on the other hand, was a brand new thing. I'm sure some of you don't even know what the hell this thing is. This was during the era of the personal organizer. These really silly devices where you could keep track of your appointments and use it as a calculator and some other things that I can't even fathom right now. It was a personal organizer for kids, the Data Blaster. For boys specifically. The girl version was the Dear Diary. From what I remember, it was specifically designed around being a digital journal. The boy version couldn't be that. Oh no, never. That wasn't rad enough for boys of the 90s. No, it was a device to organize your sports cards, I guess. There were later even specific versions for different sports. While I did have a small collection of cards, that's not why I wanted it. Hell, I don't know why I wanted it really. Because it was cool, I guess. Also, it could do some other stuff. It had a game or two on it. They're garbage, though. If you've ever seen Ashen's Pop Station videos, think of those terrible games. It's pretty much the same. I think this might have also been the time that Best Buy had all these tiny handheld PCs, which I would always go and look at whenever they were at the store. I loved them. The Data Blaster was also the closest thing to one of those I was ever gonna be able to get. So there I was, a 10-year-old kid with the biggest gift-related internal struggle in my entire life. Well, up to that point. If you asked me at any given time which I wanted, the Game Boy or the Data Blaster, my answer would be different every time. Eventually, as I got closer and closer to Christmas, I started to come to my senses a little bit. While I really wanted the Data Blaster, Game Boy, it just made more sense. If I got bored with a game on the Game Boy, I could just get another one. Well, assuming I had the money. If I got bored with the Data Blaster and whatever weird shit it could do, honestly, at this point I wasn't sure what it could do, then it would just collect dust. So that was it. I had decided. It was painful, but I decided. The Game Boy it is. However, I knew there were rare circumstances when my mother couldn't find something or couldn't afford something specific. So even though I told her in the end that I preferred to get the Game Boy, I knew there was still a chance that I'd end up with the Data Blaster instead. Now, some families open their presents on Christmas Eve, or later in the day on Christmas Day, or any other random time. If I'm honest, none of those people make sense to me. There's just something magical about waking up Christmas morning to a bunch of presents under the tree. When you wake up and your brain goes, "Oh yeah!" It's like an instant energy boost, and you're as awake as you can possibly be, even if you were like me and barely got any sleep. Depending on my level of excitement, certain years I was able to fall asleep on Christmas Eve faster than others, but this was one of those years where I don't think I fell asleep until like 3 a.m. So once I fell asleep, I was dead to the world that year. Therefore, unlike some years, it was my sister who woke me up first. Who woke up first. She woke my mother and asked if it was late enough in the morning for us to open presents, because, well, some years we got up a bit too early. And with her approval, yelled, well, no, more like screamed my name up the stairs to wake me up. Normally waking up like that angers me like nothing else. I mean, seriously. And I think she knew that, but as soon as the "oh yeah" kicked in, I couldn't care less. When I got downstairs, my mother wanted to make us all some cocoa before we got started. Hot chocolate, if you're unaware. And of course, I protested. However, I was outvoted. The few minutes waiting for the kettle to boil and then whistle with the accomplishment of fulfilling its only reason for existing took far too long. I was practically shaking with excitement, and the wait was killing me. Finally, with our mugs in our hands, my sister and I sat down by the tree and passed out the presents. My mother then told us the order she wanted us to open them, and we lined them up accordingly. You see, we were all about the experience, and the anticipation of waiting to open the best present last was something we savored. My mother had me put the two tiniest presents at the back of the line. My little 10-year-old brain that had barely slept couldn't understand this at all. After all, how could those things be more expensive or important than the others? I was confused and said as much. My sister laughed at me, for my stupidity, I assume, since she knew most of what I was getting. But I quickly pushed the thought aside, as I had presents to get to opening. I opened a few small things, and then I had 4 presents left. In order, they were a rectangular, fairly large one, which was somewhat lightweight, a smaller square one, which was extremely solid and kind of heavy, and then 2 tiny ones. The rectangular one was one which was identical in size and shape to one my sister had, and we were instructed to open them both at the same time. And it was the data blaster. I was at once both really happy and excited about it, but also disappointed. I knew if I had the data blaster, then I wasn't getting a Game Boy. Still, I was pretty excited about it. I looked over, and my sister's identical box turned out to be, you guessed it, a Dear Diary. I looked dubiously over at my last 3 presents. Obviously, my mother had changed up the way she wanted us to open presents, right? I mean, she had me put those tiny ones at the back, and I'd already opened the data blaster, so these must just be some other random gifts, right? When I reached for the next present, my sister decided that she was just going to watch me open this one and not open one herself. Obviously, she knew what it was, but I wasn't sure why she'd want to watch. I opened it, and bam! The Play It Loud Game Boy pack. My 10-year-old mind was blown. I got both presents. Holy crap. I had never even seen these Game Boy packs in stores. And if I got a Game Boy, I was expecting it to be a used one, not something awesome like this. Not only was it not used, it had a clear casing. I didn't even know these existed. I knew they had come out with more colors, but I didn't realize there was a clear one. I could see all the electronics inside. I was a total electronics nerd, and this was the one I would have chosen if I had chosen for myself. My mother and sister knew me very well. Also, it had a nice clear plastic case to hold the system and games and manuals and all that stuff. It was awesome. It didn't come with any games though, and I suddenly understood the tiny packages. Of course, they're not more expensive than the other gifts, but it was essential that I open them after the system, or it would spoil it. I opened the first one, and it was a used copy of Super Mario Land. My sister immediately called me a moron for my present ordering confusion earlier. The second one was a used copy of Star Wars. So there you have it. Perhaps the best Christmas I ever had when it came to gifts. To this day, I still have no idea how my mother could have afforded both things, but I was very happy. Now, unfortunately, I sold the Game Boy a few years later, but I still have the extremely useless Data Blaster, believe it or not. Maybe someday I'll do a review on it and its uselessness. Hey, it was cool at the time, I guess. I also plan to buy a clear Game Boy someday as well. I really miss having that thing.